I'm Rebecca McGough. I'm the Operations Manager here at Results Legal. We're a mid-sized specialist commercial litigation business. Sentrian have been our managed service provider at Results for a number of years. They're the front line of all our IT, so they manage our IT environment and our cybersecurity. So in theory, it's, if someone has a problem with Word, we call Sentrian. They run all our cybersecurity training. So they send phishing emails to people and then people accidentally click on something and Sentrian get notified and that person gets extra training allocated to them, which they love. They provide all our hardware. We've recently moved all our internet and all our connectivity and phones to them away from a third-party provider because it's less risk to have it all under one umbrella because there's fewer endpoints from other places. But also we trust Sentrian. We know that they do a good job. They plan ahead for things. They're always on the phone with us trying to identify issues ahead of time. So it's just something that we felt that we could trust them with. Really, it's just making sure they've had experience managing legal firms or professional services firms, because I think it's not a niche industry, but it's dealing with the sorts of clients that we have. As you pointed out, that privacy is important, data is important, and making sure that they can respond to us in the time that we expect, which is, not the same in every industry, but we have clients that expect us to be able to do things. But we're a business that bills time. So downtime for us has a bottom dollar effect. So it makes a big difference. Another software that we use, which Sentrian doesn't manage for us, but that crashed. It's our practice management system. It manages our whole business. And Sentrian, as I say, don't manage that, but they supported us through that and they are our go-to. So they're the ones that will speak to the other party on our behalf. And the best thing that I got from Sentrian on that day, which was a rough day for all of us, was that they said to me at about 8 o'clock at night, "We're staying here until this is done." So it was such reassurance for us, even though it was something that was largely out of their hands, just knowing that there was someone who knew a bit more than I did, who was going to sit on the other end of a phone with me until it got sorted out. That was the difference, was that provider had closed for the day. It was 6 o'clock and they had closed and they said, well, that's our hours. And Sentrian, by comparison, had said, we will stay here as long as you need us to. So we have cloud-based phone systems.
So what were we using for?
It's the same, which was a bit of a risk for us because we use a system which is cloud-based, and we had that provided to us through a different third party, and we opted to move that to Sentrian. And with that inherently comes risk, because what if you don't get the same level of service as you did before? You're not actually gaining anything by moving because you're getting the same, the best case that you can get is that you get the same level of service and experience. But it was something that we felt was more efficient, moving it under Sentrian. Before that, there was issues with, someone else managed our internet, but Sentrian were the ones who were on our computers, so they were sort of having to...
So it's like a blame game.
Yeah, and I mean, they were trying to having to contact different parties, and it's just too many cooks in the kitchen. So it's just a case of Joe Blogs needs their computer looked at because their internet's not working and their phone's not working, and when there's 3 different managed service providers in there, it just takes 3 or 4 or 5 times as long. And like you say, there is inherently within that that's not my problem type thing. So bringing it all under one banner with Sentrian just made sense. Do you know, that's actually one of the big things that I think we get our value for money with Sentrian, is that I've worked in places where I'm the person in the middle and I'm directing the traffic, but I frankly am not qualified to do that. Having someone like Sentrian in the middle where they're looping me in when I need to know things so that I can escalate if I need to, but ultimately they're the ones moving the chess pieces and making sure things happen because they're the ones who understand. That's really important. So they sit in the middle and they speak to Microsoft and recently we've had issues with Microsoft, and I wouldn't even know how to speak to how do you speak to Microsoft? So they'll speak to them. They're the ones that communicate with the HP who manage our laptops and make sure if something's happening there, with our printer company, our photocopiers, things like that. And they manage everything that's under warranty for us. They'll help us
Onboard your employees.
Yep, we onboard employees through them. I would say in the last 6 months or so, we've really stepped up the way that we operate with Sentrian in a real kind of partnership sense. So we've gone from planning really, so kind of being strategic about our IT and our cybersecurity. So we've set up technology roadmaps, which we just didn't have the ability to do before. So now we're identifying what we want to change, when we're going to change it, and we're putting plans in place to do that with Sentrian's recommendations. So I think historically we were a business who, like many smaller businesses, were fighting fires and just trying to get everything, just trying to make things work. But I would say the last 6 to 12 months, we've had a proactive cybersecurity uptick. We really lent into cybersecurity, and Sentrian really guided us on that. So we looked at Essential 8, we looked at getting that ticked off. Where Sentrian provide real value is in giving us advice. They have clients who use these systems, they see what the issues are. We loop them into these conversations so that we do have that kind of partnership where they can give us their advice on how things work. They know our business like we do. Professional services businesses and law firms specifically are similar in the way they operate and similar in the way they bill time, but everyone has their nuances and everyone has the ways that they do things. And I think it's really important to have a partner who understands how you operate so they can advise, because when you go out into a market full of practice management systems, everyone tells you that their system is the best and it's great, but actually having someone who can say, well, you guys do this way, so that's not going to work for you, we've got a client that's right. Yeah. So, and there's been a few where they've given us a steer on, what's appropriate and not appropriate. Yeah, exactly. And that's always part of the relationship that we have with them. Their systems that they have set up to respond to people and deal with, appropriate things is second to none. They meet every expectation that we have, and I couldn't be more grateful for them. We've used them over different projects. We've used them for cybersecurity, but we've also used them for things like procurement and working out a plan for how often we should replace our technology. We've used them for all our AV solutions. We use them for our licensing for all our software and to make recommendations about things like, should we change our calling provider? Should we look at different software for planning projects? They have recently done a training session with our MD on using Copilot, which isn't something that we use here, but they really do meet all our needs.